Coming up, the first BB27 evictee reacts.
My goal is to try and take the pressure off me and put it on her. Say, hey, I'll stand up to her. You guys think she's a threat.
And from our archives, BB24 winner Taylor Hale spills a game secret with Rachel Reilly.
My win was all competitions. And when you gave your speech, I was like, oh my, she changed the game. This is like a new Big Brother.
Look, a lot of my gameplay did come down to just pure survival. But survival for my game came down to social strategy.
Welcome to the Secret Alliance podcast, where we talk about the game of Big Brother with the people who play it. I'm Jason Guy from BB3 with Hannah Chaddha from BB23.
Could a final two be a game ender for one of these BB27 players? We're going to get into it, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing so well. How are you?
It's been so much fun watching BB27. The feeds have been exciting. Anything right now, as we're right into week 3, that you want to bring up from past or current play?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean,
Very
we're still
wide open. I know,
yes,
very broad.
very wide open. I mean, at this point, it's so premature in the game, so I have no idea how things are going to pan out. But what I will say is Ava is kind of a sleeper. I didn't have the highest hopes for her. I knew she wasn't a super big fan. I was kind of questioning whether she understood the game and what it may take to win. Not that I've ever won, so I don't know if I can even say that I understand that, but
Same. I mean, I made it final 3, but did not win. So I don't know.
right. But at the same time, she has a phenomenal social game. She seems to be connecting well on a personal level with almost all of the house guests. It seems like she's well loved. I haven't heard her name in anyone's mouth. She's done a great job of derailing her threat level. And so I definitely think she's going to be one to watch unless they all catch on to the fact that, wait a second, Ava might just win this thing. We have to take her out. So who knows?
She's very likable. I've watched her on the feeds move through the house and relationships. And even with this new HOH, and we'll throw a little spoiler in here, week 3 HOH, we've got Lauren running the house. The work I thought Ava did was so interesting. And I watched on the feeds the one camera that was closed up on Lauren. And it was so interesting to watch the way Lauren's face reacted, her eyes, as she and Ava had a conversation. And then other house guests would come in. And I was like, oh, Lauren's eyes are different now. She's not buying this sales pitch. She's trying to, for instance, when Kelly was in there, this is great stuff that you're getting to all my notes though, but Kelly was in there and I felt like Lauren was like, I just need you to say you'll go on the block. Like that's all Lauren wanted. She was just waiting on that moment. She wasn't building anything with her. I watched her with a few other players and I felt like it was a different sort of interaction than with Ava. So kudos to her. She's been very likable.
Well, Lauren and Ava,
not on the episodes a lot, but
yes,
great on the feeds.
Yes. I was going to bring up that Lauren and Ava actually have a final 2. I know we're going to get into final 2s a bit, but it's called the Bond Girls. And the basis of it.
As in Bond, James Bond?
Yes, yes. If I had a British accent, that's exactly what I would attempt to say. But I think the basis of it is they're the only 2 women in the big Bond alliance, which is kind of null and void because Lauren just put up Will on the block, and Will is one of the members of the Bond alliance. But it seems as though Lauren still wants to work with Ava moving forward. And I think it's so interesting how you say that, Jason, about Lauren's maybe like non-verbal cues being different with Ava, because those are things that you can really pay attention to get a feel of the dynamics between players. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I know it's been very fun to watch. I felt like as the new HOH, Lauren had been struggling with the decision she's going to make. Everyone, maybe not everybody, it feels like they were coming in saying Jimmy. That was a name that she did hear a lot, but she, right before Jimmy became week 2's HOH, there were some deals made. So Lauren had a deal where it's like, if Jimmy keeps her safe and she wins HOH, the next week she's going to keep him safe. So I felt like she wanted to keep her integrity and not break that, and that may happen later in the game where she makes a deal and then breaks the deal. But at this point, Lauren thought it was too early, it seems, to go against that deal she made with Jim.
I think one of the most important things you can do early on in the game, if you're maybe not someone who has the most athletic prowess, such as myself, the way that you build currency and capital in that house is by being honest. Because if people look at you as a truthful player who plays with integrity, somewhere down the line, you can start going back on deals. You can start breaking your word to people, but they're not really going to see it coming because they've labeled you in their minds. You are this good, pure, heroic player who they can trust and who they think they'll have in their back pocket. So I definitely think Lauren made the right move in terms of, carrying out a promise that she made to Jimmy early on in the game, because starting week 6, week 7, week 8, she can be a little more chaotic. And I don't think people will ascribe those features to her because she's been
Yeah.
honest early on.
All right, we talked about this being very early in the game, and it is. But we've seen Vince is our first HOH. A lot of players were saying they didn't want to be that first head of household. But on my season, that's the person who ended up winning the game. Lisa was our first HOH and then went on and took the game. So it's not a bad place to be. But we had, for nominations, then we saw Amy and Ashley and Zay on the block. Obviously, we know Zay went out. Rachel had a little safety there. Our girl, Rachel Reilly from the podcast, as she came in to be that 17th house guest. Or Amy was the 17th house guest and part of the Saboteurs play. I don't know how we count it, but we had 17 players the way it shook out because nobody thought it was Amy. And they really did put that week 1 target on Zay, really thinking that he was part of something, up to something shady.
I believe they did vote Reilly and Zay, but then since Reilly got the most votes, the masked visitor ended up revealing that Reilly was not the saboteur. And so I think all of them then assumed, oh, it must be Zay. We're super sketched out by him.
Yeah, maybe that's what was going down.
Yeah. But on top of the fact that, if you have someone on the block who's really tall and really strong, even though the comps have been more equitable in the last 2 seasons, which I love, by the way, please level out the playing field. I think they would be remiss to send someone like Amy home over Zay home when they have the chance, So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can definitely see why Zay went home the first week.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. And there had been a push, it seems like, from the women in the house to start getting rid of the guys, especially some of the big, strong guys. So I saw what happened week 1. Then we get into week 2. We've got Jenny's week. I think he was really looking to create some chaos. And he's one I want to talk a lot about. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm in a position of wondering, has he played too hard, too fast, done too much that he's really hurt his long-term game at this point? I know it's a marathon. A lot can change in the BB house in a matter of a couple of weeks, but I feel like he's got some damage control to do after his HOH reign, mainly because with powers and all of these things, he's had 5 house guests that he's had to put up on the block in week 2. That's a lot of damage control that he's got to that pedal on.
Yes, I think Julie said during the live show, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, that him putting up 5 house guests over the course of 1 week made him tied for having the most nominees. And of course, only one of them went home, Amy. And so now he's in a house with Keanu, with Kelly, with Adrian, who he put up, and he saved himself on the BB Blockbuster, sorry, and then Will. So that's 4 players that could very easily put up Jimmy just because Jimmy put them up, even if Jimmy's not necessarily their target. So I do feel bad for him just because, like, with those 3 powers being unleashed in the same week, on top of the BB Blockbuster twist, his HOH was bound to be messy. I think anyone could have been the HOH that week and it would have been almost as messy, but obviously Jimmy has a flair for the theatrics. So I don't think that necessarily helped his case. But thankfully for Jimmy, I do think there are actually bigger targets in the house as of right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get to that. So I think as long
let's
as...
talk about...
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, because I think Keanu just put the biggest bullseye in the house on himself.
Oh my gosh, Keanu, what in the world? Remember during preseason interviews, he described himself as a gentle giant, and I fully believed him. I was like, okay, he's big, but he has a big heart. Keanu is being so chaotic. Do you remember his speech during the veto ceremony when he said,
Yes.
"I'm picking you off one by one"?
One by one, by one.
Why would you say that? And then of course Ashley was
So
like,
it's you, Keanu, against the whole house now.
yes.
What?
And yet he simultaneously seems to think that he's running the house and he has every HOH in his back pocket. And I'm so confused where just the disconnect and the lack of self-awareness comes from. And I found the argument between him and Ashley to be hilarious because I was like, wait, Ashley, there's no need for you to get involved in this at all. But knowing Ashley, she is so incredibly unfiltered. I don't think she can hold her tongue. And we did talk about it a little before. I was like, okay, sometimes you may want to say something, but you can't because you're playing for $750,000. So I did think, she would be able to reel it in just a little. But at the end of the day, she's authentically herself. And I have to commend that. And she makes great TV.
Okay, so you gave her a little advice to, you missed the first episode. Hannah and Ashley have known each other since you guys were itty bitties. And you didn't give her like coaching, but you were just, the bit of advice was zip your lips.
Yes, I think the one thing because mostly what I wanted to talk to her was about how this experience can kind of affect your mental health, especially with social media. That's something that's fairly new to Big Brother post BB16, post BB17. And then, I just kind of wanted to give her a rundown of what to expect, like what does slop taste like? What are the different things you can do with slop? Stuff like that. We didn't really talk about the game, but I said, listen more than you talk. I don't think she's necessarily taken my advice, but as I said, at the end of the day, Ashley is going to be Ashley. She's an adult. I did not coach her, and I love the fact that she is so her, and I think she's hilarious. So I'm still rooting for her, but that kind of goes back to the whole, like, there are sort of bigger targets in the house than Jimmy. We have Kelly, we have Keanu. I know a lot of people have had Ashley in their mouth. I know some people have had Morgan in their mouth. So as long as Jimmy can lie low, I think he may be okay for a couple weeks.
Okay. If Jimmy lays low, so you're not as worried about Jimmy as maybe I am. I think he's in trouble, especially after we see Vito, and it's a little bit easier for maybe Lauren to make a move. But I think certainly the next HOH, and I know he has a chance at that point to win that, but I do think that's where Jimmy is going to be in danger. We'll see. A lot to shake out. So we weighed in on Ashley. We've weighed on Jimmy. And my thoughts that it's too fast, too soon, too much. I do want to talk a little bit about our pal Rachel, and we as this podcast here, the Secret Alliance podcast, as we've interviewed past house guests, we talked to winners, and one in particular, Taylor, did such a good job with social game. Yes, Taylor won comps, but Taylor's social game, I think, was so solid. And Taylor had advice that Rachel and you, Hannah, heard. You took this in, and I really had wanted that to sink in for Rachel. So we're going to play that for everybody right now, and then talk about if we think that Rachel's really playing the best social game right now in BB27.
My win was all competitions. And when you gave your speech, I was like, oh my God, she's changed the game. This is like a new Big Brother. So
Yes.
It's amazing that you could do that. And like, you really made history in so many ways that I think we haven't even realized yet, because we're going to be talking about this again in 10 years. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. And people next year, little girls who are my age, 21, whatever, they're going to be like, I want to play a Taylor Hale game. Or like, as soon as I turn 21 in 10 years, I want to play like Taylor Hale. Oh. So that's just. Don't stay on the block the first week intentionally. Just don't do that. But yeah, no, I think strategy does not have to look like a intentional cookout type plan. Shout out Tiff. Strategy can look like influence, and influence is the real factor in longevity and success in this game, from my perspective.
look, a lot of my gameplay did come down to just pure survival. But survival for my game came down to social strategy, and also who do I survive sitting next to, and who do I survive within this house? Who's going to take out my enemies, and who's going to remain an ally, and be beneficial to taking forward in the game. So I think the biggest decision that I ended up making, that a lot of people in the house wanted to make, but I was looking at a way to get rid of one of my closest allies, Michael. I know Michael and Brittany were very closely connected, and I know I was the next one right underneath the two of them. But I was the one that really reassured Monty that he could use the veto and make a big move to take him out. And I would have done the same thing if I went with the veto. I do think anybody in the house would use the veto to put Michael up and get him out the house, but there was a specific type of trepidation that many of the house guests had when it came to me and what would happen. And I had a close relationship with Monty. I really made sure to work that relationship so that he could trust me, and I wanted to trust him as well. And as soon as I felt very comfortable with him, I made sure that he knew that we had a path forward if he were to go ahead and use that veto. So, the game isn't just about making the move, it's about influencing people to make the move. And to start from a position where I had no influence at all, to build relationships and have smart decisions that could have looked like it was one person's, but actually have influenced someone to do it. Influence them to the point where they think it's their own decision. That is, I think, the marking of someone who's really good at playing the game.
I fully agree with Taylor in the sense that social game is so important in a game like Big Brother, where you are living with people for 80-something, 90-something days. I would argue that social game is perhaps the most underrated component of people's games. I may disagree with you just a little. I do think that some house guests are maybe bothered by it being the Rachel show, because it's true. I mean, anytime a returner is on a season, I feel like they almost overshadow the newbies, because at this point, they become the narrator, the focus is on them, and they end up just setting up the narration for the season. However, I think she's doing a great job of connecting to some of those younger kids in the house. It seems to me like she's pretty well insulated, and I haven't heard anyone say, let's take her out before jury in a very long time. It seems as though the general consensus is, let's keep Rachel until jury, and then we'll get rid of her at some point. But hey, that's all she needs to survive from week to week. And then, maybe they'll just say, Rachel's the perfect person to take to final 2 because none of the jurors are going to vote for her, and maybe her speech can win them over. And I think that's kind of what Rachel's banking on. But she just made a final 2 with Ava this week. She is pretty close to Ashley. It seems like she's close to Jimmy. Keanu definitely wants to go after her, and Rachel wants to go after Keanu, but I don't think Keanu is going to last in the house for very long. So overall, I think Rachel's social game has improved so much between her original 2 seasons and now. And maybe it's the fact that she's older, she's more mature, she has a family. She's just more experienced at playing these games now that she's done a ton of shows and a ton of competitions. And maybe her not having Brendan, her husband, with her has kind of just forced her into this position where she has no choice but to fend for herself. So I think socially she's actually doing pretty well, but you never know.
There was conversation to Lauren about her being upset with people staying up late. And, it's like, it really does change when you get into your 40s versus your 30s or 20s, how much sleep you need. And even just being a parent, you don't want to parent the other players because they're adults. And that's, I guess, a concern. We'll see how that plays out on the episode, and then in any ripples or repercussions that come from it. It may just be a blip.
Yes.
Everybody has a bad day in that house.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. And do you feel like Lauren would put up Rachel as a renom, or are you not feeling that way?
I don't right now, based on just watching the initial conversations. I don't know. I really don't know where Lauren is in the game as far as Rachel. I think Rachel's going to be okay because she's hearing from enough people who are not, they've got bigger names. They think Jimmy's a bigger threat. I think they obviously are looking for Keanu to get out. And she's also trying to, I think Lauren is trying to be a little safe with this HOH because it is so early in the game. She knows okay, if I put Rachel up, let's say she had done that with the initial noms, then Rachel has a chance to win POV, and we know Rachel can win competitions. We've seen that in her past playing Big Brother. And then there's still, even if she were to make Rachel a renom, there's still the BB blockbuster, and it might be the fire that Rachel needs to go in there and win that, and then pull herself off the block. Rachel also has some alliances going and enough people. I think she could get the votes, even if she didn't win the BB blockbuster and stay safe. And then I think Lauren goes, "This is not somebody I want to have as an enemy when next week I can't play in the HOH comp." That's my takeaway. I don't see her making Rachel a renom. I think there are a lot of other players that are in her sights because it's a safer choice. Now, she may be looking to build a resume and fast, and that but she's not saying that. So I don't foresee that being the issue. And that's just what I've watched on the feeds. But I do want to talk about where we stand with week 3 nominations, because I think if some of these people stay on the block, Anna, I think one is certainly going home because Lauren, as week 3 HOH, Lauren nominated Keanu, Kelly, and Will. All right.
Because Kelly keeps volunteering for the block every week, and it makes sense.
Kelly.
She only watched BB26, and Tucker, I think, is her favorite player. So maybe she just thinks everyone plays like Tucker, but Tucker is such an anomaly. That's why we loved him so much, because he was chaotic, he was different, he played a game that I don't think anyone else has ever played. So it seems to me as though Kelly's trying to recreate that, but it's like, Kelly, what? What? No, I don't know. I don't know.
Don't get nominated. Don't get nominated. That's how you make sure you don't go home. Because if you're ever on the block, you could go home.
Exactly. So I'm thinking that Kelly and Keanu probably will be leaving the house. If not this week, then sometime very soon.
I think if Keanu doesn't win the POV, and I think if he doesn't win the BB blockbuster, I think this is the week that he goes. I think Rachel would like to take that shot, and I think she can rally some of the other players to vote that way. If it's Kelly on the block, then, and Keanu, let's say, saves himself in one of those challenges, I do think then Kelly may go. I am concerned for Will, though, that he is going to be this pawn week after week after week, and then for some reason the target is off, whether it's the veto, whether it's the BB blockbuster, and then Will ends up going home. And I don't know. I am not sure that Will is going to make it, as much as I think we haven't seen enough of his game yet. We haven't really seen him kind of throttle up. I'm afraid he's not going to make it to jury, and I don't know why I have that thought.
Oh, okay. So you almost feel like it's just a matter of time before the perpetual pawn does end up getting sent home. Oh,
Yeah,
I would
and that's
hate
the
that.
same thing for Kelly. Kelly's being the perpetual pawn, and Kelly's going to be gone before jury if she keeps volunteering to go up on the block.
Okay, so assuming that we only have 5 weeks of pre-jury, I know the last 2 seasons have kind of done things a little differently, but historically, we have 5 weeks of pre-jury, and then we have a 9-person jury, and then, of course, the final 2. So do you feel like the next 3 boots are going to be some combination of Kelly, Keanu, Will?
Yes, I think I would. Hey, there's so much to go in week 3, but I would right now say if I had to, out of the 3 nominees right now, initially vote for one of them that I think will go, I think Keanu is out this week. Just, it's my gut. I want to see him be a comp beast, but he didn't show up. I mean, thankfully, he had that power, and he could bring in a competition beast here. I mean, how cool was it that we saw him in week 3 with Casey showing up and playing for Keanu, because he just let his hand off the button. It was a false start. And so then Casey had to really come in strong and again win a POV. I mean, the champion of POVs, Casey Clark.
I loved it. As a super fan myself, I think I would, this season, Jason, I would have died, because Felicia kind of hosted that challenge. I loved her. Casey, she's such a comp beast. She won the challenge. She's won Big Brother. You can't deny that she is a good, solid player. And then to have Rachel Reilly in the house, like this season would have been, I think, my dream to play in.
Although let's say you and Rachel are in there, and then you have to go on opposite sides of the house. Like, dun dun dun.
I don't think so. I did kind of let Ashley know I have a strong feeling there's going to be an alum in the house just based on some
Yes,
rumblings that I had
I
heard.
remember you saying this. Uh-huh.
And so we talked about the fact that returnees, they historically do better. Now, for Rachel, for her to do better during this season, that would mean she would have to win. So the odds are kind of stacked against her. But alum returning to the game, they do tend to do well. And so we kind of talked about how it may be beneficial to her to be on the periphery of that alum's circle. Maybe not be their number one because you don't want to get the Amy treatment, for example, where they sent her home because she was so closely aligned with Rachel. But it's not a bad thing to be with them. I think it's a bad thing to be against them. And so I don't know if that was an intentional decision by Ashley or if maybe she really just felt herself connecting to Rachel. But I think I would have worked with any alum to have walked through the door, unless it was like an alum that I despised who was so mean on their season. But other than that, I think Rachel and I would have been like this.
Okay. All right. I do too. But let's talk about what happened because of the eviction. So Rachel lost her final two, the Moms 2.0 alliance partner with Amy going out at the end of week 2. Um, what do you think that means for Rachel and Ashley? I'm looking at it thinking that this is going to become a tighter bond and better for both of them.
I think so too, just because now it doesn't seem like I think Amy was kind of the common denominator in their trio. Like Amy and Rachel were very close. Amy and Ashley were very close. I don't know if Ashley and Rachel are necessarily as close, but I think a weak duo is a lot less scary than a strong trio. Just because Big Brother is a numbers game at the end of the day. And so I think this will be, sadly, because I really did like Amy, better for Rachel and Ashley's games moving forward.
Well, I certainly think that there's a lot that's going to unfold this week. And I would like to see Lauren use this week to set herself up because she is a player who has surprised me. I'm a little nervous just watching her in making her decisions. Although it reminds me of someone on season 3 of Big Brother really having a tough time with the decision because I had done the exact same thing. I made a deal with Roddy. And I mean, I think 45 minutes up there in the HOH room trying to decide on whose key I would put into that box. And the producer's like, seriously, Jason, like, wait, you gotta make this decision. Because Roddy asked me before the HOH, hey, you keep me safe if you win. And then I said, okay. And then won the HOH. And I was like, I can't put him up. So I've seen Lauren do that. But I want to see her really use this week. It doesn't have to be in who she gets out, but to make some strategic moves with building relationships. It doesn't necessarily need to be alliances, but building some strong bonds there in that house. And I think she could do that and then really set herself up in this game.
Completely agree with you. And that was so cool to kind of hear you take us back to your season and explain some of your rationale there.
The
I love
producers, they were over me. The producers at Big Brother was like, done. Like, seriously, put a key in there. We don't just, if you draw one at random, but like, guys, we gotta get to the ceremony. Like, everybody in the house is waiting. We got production here. Everybody, let's move it along. We're making a TV show.
it. We're on a time schedule.
Yeah, like this has to air in a night or two. Last thing as we wrap this up, it's sort of where we began here. I think there's a player who I like, and I'm very nervous about gameplay because of the final 2 alliances that this player keeps making. I'm talking about Vince, and it's like, well, we're final 2, and we're final 2, we're final 2. I don't think we're going to make it out of this week 3, without somebody talking to somebody else and saying, oh, I'm in an alliance with Vince. And then they get to talking and find out they're both in a final 2, and they really, reveal it and then blow up his game. That's just my thought. And I think it's happening week 3.
Okay. So do you remember Tyler Crispin from BB20?
Yes.
Yes, that was kind of his fatal flaw. And so that'll be interesting if, Vince gets the same treatment. Because as you said, even if his final 2 deals don't necessarily get exposed, that's almost too many tight relationships for you to continue to massage week after week. At a certain point, you're gonna let some of those relationships fall to the wayside. Those people might end up being sketched out, and then they might come for you. So I do agree with you that that's probably not gonna bode well. But again, as of right now, there are just bigger targets in the house. So
Yeah.
he
I don't think
needs
it'll
to take a
cost.
chill pill.
I agree with that. Chill pill necessary. I don't think it's going to cost him the game this week, but I think he's going to have some damage control that he's got to start doing. And I think it really is sooner than later. Maybe it's a little further, but I think it's about to happen because people in this house are playing the game and they are talking. And all it takes is one player to another player because they've got a deal. And then they start revealing we're really each other's ride or die. But I made this side thing with Vince. And then the other one goes, oh, I made this side thing with Vince. And then somebody shares it with somebody else. And then it's a whole thing. And we got a house meeting and Keanu all of a sudden isn't in as much trouble.
Yes, but Keanu probably will just find a way to insert himself in the drama regardless.
Yeah. Hannah, thank you so much for your insight. It's been fun already this season. We'll keep doing it throughout.
Let's do it, Jason. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, and we're going to leave you with what Zay had to say as he walked out of the BB house. Check this out.
I mean, obviously, winning competitions would have helped. I think that's the easiest way that I could have saved my game. I think towards the end there, I was campaigning hard. I was trying my best, but I just think it wasn't the cards for me to stay if I didn't win the competition, and I didn't execute. I didn't pull through.
That was Zay responding to the question if he thought there was anything he could have done to save his game. Here's how the exit interview with Zay works. We submitted a question alongside other outlets to the Big Brother PR team, and they sent back video responses. We didn't interview Zay directly. These are handout interviews. I'll let you know which question came from the Secret Alliance. Back to the interview. Do you think your focus on Rachel this week hurt or helped your chances of earning votes from the rest of the house?
I think that it could have been played either way. I think that last final fight helped my case because I think people started realizing that, the people that saw it firsthand were as confused as I was as why it was going on. Like, it was completely out of line, like the whole interaction. And so I think that it helped my case, if anything, or at least will help her not last as long as she would have otherwise.
Reilly told Catherine he would vote her way, which was with the women. Does that connection surprise you at all?
A little bit. Like, he would always talk in the house about, how he's he wanted, to some women, in general. But he never mentioned really Catherine to me, which is crazy because we're super tight boys, But it kind of makes sense strategically that he wouldn't mention that. But yeah, it was a little bit surprising to go back and hear about everything that, he did for Catherine. It doesn't seem like she's the most interested, but I still love Reilly. He's hilarious. He's a great guy. Obviously it's a game. So at the end of the day, I don't hold anything personal against Reilly. I do not think though that at the end of the day, it was best for his game to evict me. I would have had his back in future weeks.
Here's our question. During your back and forth with Rachel, when you warned her she couldn't win 2 seasons and she snapped back, "You'll get beheaded," what was going through your mind in that moment? And looking back, do you regret how confrontational it got? Or do you still stand by your call out that some say was aggressive?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that watches the entire live interaction would not say I was being aggressive in any way. I think it's really easy to have that perspective skewed on, the way it was edited. But I think it's pretty obvious. I wanted nothing to do with the conflict. I wanted nothing to do with the confrontation. I would literally sit there. I would just stand there, and she would just stare at me until I responded. And there were times where I was even grabbing water, and she was just staring at me. And I was trying to, talk to her one-on-one, and she would walk across the house to try and blow it up for yelling at each other across the house. And it's pretty obvious that I didn't want that to happen. That was the one line that I said. So I felt like I almost had to say something or she wasn't going to stop. That's the one line I said. I actually fumbled the delivery of it pretty bad because I didn't want to say it. And I was still as I was saying, I was like, is this something I want to say? I know it's probably going to go on TV. Is this how I want to be represented? Do I want to be represented as somebody who, almost gets in fights? Because I don't. In my real life, I never argue. I never get in fights with really anybody. And so it was surprising to me that I was even in a confrontation like that because I haven't been probably since I was a little kid. I don't think I've had a confrontation like that. And so it was sucky for me to, be involved in that. But I think that, if people really do think that I was being aggressive or out of line in any way, then they're a little bit misinformed and didn't watch the entire interaction.
Do you hate beef or love beef?
I love eating beef. I love eating any sort of meat or anything. I just love eating. So So yeah, but I don't like beef in general. Like, I don't like conflict, but if you put a big burger in front of me, then it's gonna be gone in a couple minutes.
What do you believe was your biggest mistake in the game and why?
Oh, I mean, I think there's so many ways that I could take this. I mean, I think it's easy to say, like, I literally blanked so hard in the competition that, like, it was such a dumb mistake and that cost me my game right there. I think a big one would be not connecting with the women early enough in the house. I could have gone out and started talking game a little bit earlier. It's a hard balance, I think, when you're in there because you don't know really who else is talking game, how early they are. And I think a lot of people talk game too early, like Kelly, immediately put a target on the back. But if you wait too long, like how I feel I did, then you're kind of playing catch up and trying to grab votes that are already kind of almost leaning against you. And so I think it's a hard balance that obviously week one is the hardest because if you're not on the block, it doesn't really matter that much. You don't have to go out of your way to talk game as much week one. You can kind of wait for people to come to you. But because I was on the block, I don't think I played my cards perfectly there.
Do you still think it was a good idea to come for the queen, Rachel, now that you've in fact been beheaded?
I do think it was my best chance. My goal was to try and take the pressure off myself. People, for some reason, even though I did nothing to make myself a threat, just because I had muscle, I don't really know. Just that I had muscle, people automatically thought of me as a threat. And so, my goal is to try and take the pressure off me and put it on her. Say, hey, I'll stand up to her. You guys think she's a threat, so I'll be the one to take her out. And I was hoping that would give me at least one more week in the game. So no, I don't regret that at all. I think it was the best play for my game. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I think at that point my fate was kind of determined. I don't think there was anything else I could have really done to help myself stay in the game another week. It was just came out of the competitions at that point.
And the final question for Zay. If you had to evict one, Rachel or ChatGPT, who's packing their bags?
I would say Rachel because I love ChatGPT and I still use it every day and for everything that I just love it. So I'm a big ChatGPT fan. And so I would never vote to evict ChatGPT. But it came down to me and ChatGPT. I might just vote to evict myself. Who knows?
Thank you for checking out the Secret Alliance podcast. Tell someone who loves Big Brother all about us. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, watch more from BB27 and other past seasons, and leave us your comments. We love reading and responding to them. Thanks.